Second. Second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion? All those in favor? And it is unanimous. Oh, you did. Okay. All right, with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Colabufo for our presentation to the board. From, okay.
Look, I was talking to the superintendent report this time. So at this point, for the C Squared 2018 presentation, I will now turn it over to Conchetti Galvan and Aaron Phillips. Yeah, which is the best mic that they use that they would be on there? They're going to go to the podium? Oh, great. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Aaron and I are just going to go over our C Squared plan. As you know, the strategic plan was implemented in 2016. Can't hear me?
I can hear you
because I'm really loud. Is that working too? Oh, so you have to be very close to this mic. I can do that. That's fine. So as you know, in 2016, we put together a C-Square plan. It's a 3-year plan. We are in the 2nd year of implementation of this plan. As part of our procedures within the district, we have 3 mission statements. So Ms. Pearl? There you go. So our 3 mission and action statements to provide rigorous learning and individual and group educational experiences that will lead to positive ownership of learning, accommodate all student needs using a district-wide common understanding and application of differentiated instruction, and to provide opportunities for students to use critical thinking and problem-solving skills with real-life application. Those same 3 mission and action statements have been in place for the last 2 years, and they drive everything that we do. What are we doing to support that plan? Well, we do a lot of it through professional development. Our superintendent conference days are dedicated to this plan, and all of the PD that we approve all year long are related directly to our mission and action statements. Our building action plans, those are devised by the building principals with the support of their staff, and the principal action plans are also aligned, and they focus primarily on differentiated instruction. The principals, the consultants, our curriculum coordinators, we all create professional development plans that align to these. The building days are the half days that we release early. Those are designed by the building principals. The full days, which are November 13th, April 2nd, and May 15th, are devised by our cabinet, and again, they all align together. We're going to go over a couple of those plans for you. Actually, I think they are in your folders, a couple of sample plans, so you can see the kind of things that we do. We also do our regular learning walks 3 times a year in all buildings. Those are conducted by Irena, Aaron, myself. We grab a building principal. Linda Meredith has done them with us in the past. At this time, she hasn't been doing them with us. Did she do them with us this year? No. So we did the 3 of us did them. We hit about, how many? We hit 52 classrooms on our first round on the first day, over a couple of days. We collect all the data that we're going to share with you as well. We'll do those 3 times a year. Our next one is coming up soon. Kramer over here says it's January. She probably knows the date, the time, and what classrooms we're going into already. The other thing that we do is the principals do their learning walks. They use what's known as the tool of the 4 Ps, which we're going to review with you, and they go into classrooms regularly as well. Get really close to that.
So like Connie mentioned, this is our 2nd year of conducting the learning walks district-wide. Last year, they have been tweaked since we have started. So the first round we had a bunch of people going through, and then we slowly got it down to more manageable numbers of people going into classrooms. So now we have gotten it to succinct where we're down in 2 teams. So Connie and I, and Irena and one of the building principals, like Connie mentioned, they're 3 times a year. We will be doing our second round at the end of January, and we literally are in classrooms for no more than 15 minutes. We have a Google form, and we're just looking for the pieces that are aligned to our strategic plan. And then we come back, and so once we'll show you some data in a second. And now that we have our October data, we will look at and compare the October information with our January information, and then as a administrative staff kind of look and make some decisions as to where are we with our strategic plan, with our professional development, what needs to be added, what needs to be, if we look like we're hitting marks solidly, what can we change, and gauge our instruction. And then our third round will be at the end of May. Last year we did it early June, and we noticed a lot of conflicts with finals and prepping and studying and field trips and things like that. So we were more succinct in our planning this year. So we should have 3 solid points of data this year to reference. So these are just a couple of the questions that we go in and we look for. So do the teachers have clear, measurable learning targets for the lesson? Are they communicated? Do the kids know what they are expected to be doing? And these are just solid instructional practices that are up here. Feedback, choices given to the students, which is part of our differentiated instruction. Are the teachers gauging and giving the kids what they need based on the formative assessment being used? Is that formative assessment aligned to the learning targets that they told the kids that they were going to be, kind of their roadmap? And there's many other questions that are kind of subsets of these different pieces. So these were just highlighted ones. So you can see we have a little bit of work to do with some of our differentiation and providing kids some choice. We have our teachers having clear, measurable learning targets for the most part, but they're not always aligned. The formative assessment isn't always aligned. So these are the types of conversations that we have as an administrative staff when we look at, what are we seeing when we go in unplanned, unannounced, and just take a quick look at what you're seeing. And these pieces are things that when you walk into a classroom, you should be able to see. You shouldn't have to wait 20, 25 minutes to be in there. You should be able to see the learning targets posted, the formative assessment being used either through questioning or some type of organizer essay that the kids are writing. So you'll see these different instructional pieces in action when you walk in.
Excuse me, Erin. This is the data from last year.
This is from October.
From October.
Yep, this is from October.
And what do we have from last year? Anything?
Well, last year that was, Tim, one of the years that we were kind of taking it. So it wasn't, some of the questions have changed because the wording wasn't, teachers didn't understand the wording, so we changed it. So we've done them for 2 years and we've tweaked them. So that's why I think this year is going to be the year where we're going to have solid. The teachers understand the questions. They're more user-friendly. We have the teams we're not changing the number of people walking in and the amount of data that we're getting. So it's been a work in progress. So.
And what is the question specifically to choice was giving to students?
That's exactly how the question's worded. So we're the students.
What do we expect students to have as choice? Like at home, my kids don't get a lot of choice.
So this would be if there was some type of choice board, or the students they're going to write an essay, but they had a choice of their topic, or a choice of a graphic organizer that they were going to use, or a choice of different research avenues that they were going to be able to access for whatever the project was. So. And
one other, I'll just say, there was a great lesson in the high school with a math teacher said to the students, kind of like the Olympics, you can choose these in level 1. This is difficulty 2, and this is difficulty 3. You get more points, obviously, if you take on the harder one, right? So if the student that knows, I'm really struggling at this one, I feel more comfortable, it just gives them the more opportunity to connect with the work than be drowned or way above it.
Mm-hmm. And you hope that the kids are going to make those choices that are going to challenge them. Sometimes that's a confidence piece that, they kind of stick with the one that's more easier, and then it's that motivation piece and that risk taking that we're trying to build with those kids. So that's kind of it. Mm-hmm.
Now, did you have any clear goals as far as what you thought you were going to see, and then what you the measurement ended up being?
We were really trying to gauge the differentiation, because that's what our big focus for PD has been in the last couple of years. So to see choice be that low when that's part of one of the differentiated pieces is, so we have some work to do still. But when you look at the other, the other pieces in instructional strategies, that's another one of the big, professional development pieces that have been here. So to see it go, be at 71%, that means that teachers are using, solid instructional strategies in their classrooms. So, now we can continue to hone in and develop those a little bit more. And when we do this, we have to evidence in there what the strategies are that we're seeing. So when we sit down with the administrators, we can see they're asking open-ended questions. They used a rubric. They used, the association triangle, or, different feedback charts that kids can use back and forth with each other. So it just depends on, but that's what we're seeing. So that's a good indicator that our PD is paying off.
Yeah, and I've said it before up here, this is the hardest part. When you're trying to implement change, the measurement, how you're going to measure the effectiveness of what you've done up to this point is hard. So you take a good look at it, measure it, adjust, and then go back out.
And I think that's why now that we have it kind of solid and the questions have been tweaked, I feel like we're in a good spot this year. So we'll have 3, we'll look at the same questions again in January, the same questions again in May, without any changes. So I think this will be the year where we really have some solid data to pull from.
I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be, this is good stuff. Thank you.
I think one of the things that I've been most pleased with is 2 years ago getting everybody to write a learning target the same way that was actually instructionally focused versus a task completion, followed up by giving the kids some choice, and how are you going to demonstrate to me that you've mastered the skill, which is in the learning target. Those have been the pieces that I have been most pleased with. And then up at the secondary level, especially up here where the blocks are so much longer, seeing more instructional strategies, differentiated instructional strategies being used, that's markedly different than what I saw last year or even the year, previous, when I was just a principal.
And just to quickly add to that, the teachers actually just recently approached me, because now we're looking at their APPR for next year. And I can't say that it's a definite that it's going to switch to the thoughtful classroom, but I know that the unit is now feeling really comfortable with changing it from the NICET, and they're going to go to their unit and say, hey, look, this is what we proposed to Tom and the administrators, and they liked our suggestions. And part of that is a reflection sheet that the teacher it's a real simple thing that they fill out that is differentiation, that literally they'll say, I'm differentiating this lesson either based on readiness level, interest, or learning profiles, which makes it so much easier for the teacher, but then makes it so much easier for the administrator to come in to get that buy-in, consistency. And that was because the teachers made that, so that's pretty good.
So, sorry, one question before you leave that slide. I want to make sure I'm thinking about it correctly and what your thoughts are. So, I view it as a negative. Is it always a negative if the formative assessment is not aligned to the learning target?
That's not, yeah.
Just want to make sure. So and so I'm I play a math guy anyway. So if 79% of the time formative assessment is being used, but only 50% of the time it's being aligned to the target, so 44.8% of the time, but learning targets are only identified 65% of the time. So we're talking like somewhere in the 30% range. And this is baseline, right? So it is what it is.
Correct.
But it would just be interesting as we move down this road for, again, what are our targets? And like you said, it's a new measurement, but what is good, what is great, and what is not acceptable?
You want the clear, measurable learning targets to align with the formative assessment that's aligned to learning targets. So those numbers, and that was one of the reasons why I put this up here to show where we're doing pretty well at, but also where we need to continue to focus our efforts and provide that PD within the buildings and grade levels and department meetings and things like that, because those numbers should be aligned. If there are times when we go in and the learning targets have been on another slide or they're not posted and there's the formative assessment, a lot of times we'll either ask the students, what are you doing? And sometimes they can tell us and sometimes they can't. So we still have a little bit of work to do there, but that's okay, because that's how we know how to gauge our PD and what we need to provide people. So
And if you hear teachers saying, well, this is odd, administrators are coming in the rooms and doing this. If we didn't do this and progress monitor our program, the C-Square 2018, then we would be like all those other school districts that put a mission statement up and put all of these mission and action things, but they don't do anything. It's just on paper. So if we didn't do this and constantly look at it, we'd be doing a disservice.
This is our formative assessment of our learning targets. Our learning target was to make sure that all of our teachers were prepared and providing rigorous learning opportunities through differentiated instruction. Our walkthroughs are our formative assessment of how well are we meeting our learning targets. Is the instructional strategies that we're using through the professional development, is it effective? And if it's not, then we have to make some changes, or we have to know specifically what to offer. So the learning walks are our version of the formative assessment aligned to the learning targets.
Yeah, to what Steve said, it's great because it's too easy in other districts, I'll say, to just give platitudes, right? Oh, it's going really well, like you should see the change. This gives us something that's tangible, so it's great.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be able to see, like I said, come the end of the school year, where we were in October, and hopefully these numbers we see change. That's the ultimate goal. So.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Erin was explaining why the first year data is just kind of practice data for us. Like that first round that we had like 20 people out, and they had very little training, and they went out, and what we didn't have is that inter-rater reliability, right? So as we kept shrinking that group, what we found is we do it in pairs, and we go watch, and then we go out in the hall before we hit that submit button, and we talk about it. Is that what you saw? Well, no, I saw something else. Or what did you hear the kids say? I asked the kid, and they said this. So we really make sure that we have 4 eyes looking in that room. It's not just one person looking at it. So we want to be sure it's as accurate as possible. So that's been a real growth for us. And what's amazing is after doing it, Connie and Erin, so long now, we finish each other's sentences with some of this stuff, which is excellent because you do want to have everybody having the same vision.
Right.
So 52 rooms, you said, right, in October?
Mm-hmm.
How are those selected? And that's across the district, 52 rooms? Every elementary building, the middle school, the high school. So we'll do 156 over 3 months, right?
About. Mm-hmm.
And there's no repeat rooms, or is there? If I go into Tim McCarthy's room today in October, do I go again in January and then again in April or whatever?
There may be, due to scheduling. In an elementary school, when you're hitting every grade level, you're probably going to double hit people, but there's no names on it, so nobody knows that I went into Tim McCarthy's room. It's just the high school, and that was it, just so that we know where the data is kind of coming from. So we know if there's a gap at one particular building.
The other thing that trips us up, Tim, is we set a schedule in place. Nobody knows about it. We walk in, you're absent, so I walk out of your room and I go into your room. Or they're given a test, because they don't know we're coming. So if we walk in and they're given a test, we go to the next available classroom just so we don't lose any time. So yeah, there could be an opportunity for a repeat, but that's what it would be. It's not a planned repeat.
Does this line up with, we just talked about those teacher reviews, right? Does this line up with that?
What do you mean?
So when you do when a principal does a review, there's certain expectations during the lesson, right? And then these are like additional expectations. What I'm wondering is, do these expectations here from the learning walk line up with the actual teacher review?
Yeah, but they're separate. So this does not count at all towards the teacher at all. So if they were to go into a room and sees the teacher doing something bad, but it's one of the learning walks, this does not count against an APPR. But if you're asking, are they the same expectations of DI that we do with the teachers? Yes, they are exactly lined up.
So we're not asking teachers to do anything.
Oh, no. Every one of those is, if you look at the NYSET rubric, and then if they do agree to go to the thoughtful classroom, there's always one on formative assessment. There's already been one on differentiated instruction well before we even took this on. It actually says that in student engagement and these different learning targets. That's all part of their rubric anyway.
It is part of the rubric.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But again, like you said, it's not connected to any person's name once it's submitted, so.
No, I understand that.
So-
I'm just wondering if you're showing up, right,
We're not
unannounced.
looking for anything different than we ever looked
Okay.
for.
And what's, in a couple buildings, what you've seen is because of this and trying to gauge where the building's at, there are some buildings that have teachers that are part of their, their building instructional team that are going through and doing learning walks using a very simple document looking for the DI in the building, and then they're gauging like a peer review kind of, and that's how they're gauging their building PD for their building days. So a good example that I think is in your packet is Millard Hawks, their team, when they went through and they saw that they didn't really have much differentiation based on students' learning styles or learning profiles. So that was part of what their PD, they had some choice. The teachers had choice as to what workshops they wanted to attend. There were 3 different offerings, and one of them was on DI based on learning styles or learning profiles, so that hopefully they start to see that when they're in each other's classroom. So it's non-evaluative, but gauges how the building is doing towards their building goals, and it's been well received, and there's a couple buildings that are doing that at this point.
And the teachers are happy because what we're doing is actually our professional development on the half days for each building is really reflective of the data that is seen. So they like this because they're like, wow, if like 90% in those rooms aren't doing a certain thing, that should be something building-wide that we're working on. So that is directly linked to it.
The other thing I would add to Erin's thing that she's saying about the building level walkthroughs is the change in conversation at the building level that has been amazing to watch. So I do the same kind of thing with Hastings Mallory. I take teachers with me, and every time I come, we take different teachers and we walk through the whole building. And it's the conversation in the hallway. The first time we did it, they're like, oh, I liked your bulletin board. Oh, I want some of that furniture. That's great. That's the stuff they looked at first. And now when you get out in the hallway, they're like, I'm not sure that formative assessment was all that it could be. I'm like, yes. So now they're really looking critically at the instructional pieces, that is professional development. It's very good.
Well, and when it all lines up with good measurement and an open communication for continuous improvement, it's powerful. It's very powerful.
And the teachers wanted to know, what did you see? A lot of them will email me at the elementary level, was my lesson okay? What did you see? And we're like, it's not, and I know it's not for this, but I want to know, what did you see? And they want that feedback.
And we went into 52 classrooms tonight. I'm not sure that I saw in your classroom. Once I hit submit.
Yeah, we're on to the next one.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, they want that, and, so you give them pieces and the good things that you're seeing, and we'll keep moving to make it better. That's all we can do.
But there's certainly a heightened awareness.
Right.
And they're eager to get the feedback, even on the days that we aren't really there to give that kind of feedback.
Right. So our next steps, we will, like we mentioned, be doing our the next learning round walks in January. We're going to analyze where we were in October to where we are in January and make some changes there. And then our PD is going to continue to move in alignment with our C-squared plan, and obviously we'll address any needs that the data shows us that we need to address. So that's kind of where we're at.
So I have 2 questions. If you can go back to the second slide. The second 2 bullet points I get. The first one I need help with just, sorry, no. It's one before that. Yeah. First one I just need help with, so I can at least in my mind come up with on the second 2 how you measure that. But for the first one, how do you measure, or how do you know that you have done that to lead to positive ownership of learning? Like how do you define that?
Okay, so one of the ways that you define positive ownership of learning is the kind of activities and the engagement and the independence that you see with the students. So one of the ones that actually was troublesome for us in the beginning is are the students making their learning visible? That was a question that we had the first year, and everybody interpreted it differently. So our data was like, what does that mean? So that's one of the ways now that we've calibrated it. So what are the kids doing to demonstrate that they are working independently? One of the things we would look at is who's doing all the talking and all the work in the classroom, the teacher or the student. If the teacher's the one doing all the work and doing all the talking, that's not a real positive ownership of learning on behalf of the student. We really want them doing all the work. and actually doing the application, the synthesis, the critical
Yeah.
thinking pieces. So that's how we measure that through the questions that you see on there relate specifically to each one of those different mission and action statements.
And I just want to jump in and just say it's research-based. It's the gradual release of responsibility. So what is the teacher doing from the beginning? Let's say at the high school, 80 minutes, they're giving some type of foundation, but then what are they doing to actually allow kids the opportunity to apply what they've learned, to know formatively, yep, I can see right now this kid is struggling, and then that kid right there, so then they could take the kid, as opposed to lecturing for 80 minutes, and then you have no idea what those kids are struggling with in their room.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what the kids are actually creating. And it could be, depends on the grade level.
We've done, you know, our C-squared poster, that green poster, so all those definitions are on there. So we made sure that it was clear, everybody had them, and we share them. And then we've systematically provided PD on each one of those subtopics, so
Yep.
people know this is what it is, this is what it should look like, this is how you create that.
Excellent, great, thank you. And my only other question is, it stood out to me, so the PD, and I've heard great things about it, but I also know that not, just like any other day, people are sick, whatever it is, right? So my two questions, and it doesn't have to be answered now, it may be for Mr. Colabufo to take back as food for thought, but do we do anything for people that aren't there? Like, is there a way that they can still get the learnings and the nuggets from what they missed that day? And is there an issue with people missing multiple days of PD? And if so, how can we address it? Again, I don't expect you to answer that tonight, but it is something I'd love to hear about in the future if it is an issue.
No, and I just give you the 30-second version. Ready? Go. So basically, you know, and I hate to even use the word because it's been so misused, but like the module type thing. So there are certain things. So let's say a teacher isn't there for a certain thing, but with DI, since it is agreed upon language that we have adopted from Dr. Caroline Tomlinson, there could be a little passage or like a 3-minute video clip that they see that, and then they could then say, okay, I've used this in my lessons as like a reflection sheet. For instance, when I was coaching hockey for my son before I became a superintendent, USA Hockey puts everybody through different modules. And you have to watch the module, and you actually have to then answer some questions and kind of reflect on it after you've done it in practice. Thank you.
So we're doing that, or we will?
That is what we're looking at right now to build this bank.
I can help you with, you should have a fold-out in your folder. It's the big one. It's got two different, it's got a front and a back, and it's the 11 by 17. Is that how big that is, Pearl? Okay.
I actually got excited when I first got here. I thought it was schedules we were going to go through again. I was really pretty excited.
So, that's really funny, Tim, and because I think I remember. Yes. So what that is that's for the November 13th day. You'll see all the different things and how they're repeated. We had 2 sessions. We have morning and afternoon. Teachers had to take 2. We're offering almost the same exact things in April because the goal is by the end of the year they've hit at least 4 of these. So if they were absent, they can make some of them up. Some of them are repeats from what we offered on June 26th because some people were absent for that. So they repeat themselves and they cycle through. So we offer like a menu matrix. The goal is by the end of the year they've hit so many, or by the end of the year and by the end of the 3-year plan they will have hit everything, but there are multiple opportunities to do that. So we are addressing it that way. Your other question is what happens when people miss multiple PD days. We are tracking that and we are handling that as well. So like I said, this is our November 13th day. You'll see the different topics. It is C-squared 2018 aligned. It also puts in, you'll see there's some mental health in here. There's some special ed stuff in here. We have a very similar plan for April 2nd. The cabinet is working on that right now. People will be able to, again, address that through their matrix and their choice. They'll be able to take 2 more sessions. And then the May 15th day is going to be primarily the thoughtful classroom and that kind of stuff for the teachers. And then the TAs will have different opportunities, as will the other people that are non-instructional. What's he grinning about?
Fantastic. Thank you.
What's he grinning about?
Any other?
So also, what are some other the samples? Take a look at the PD plans that I included. I grabbed one from elementary and one from secondary. Those are the half days that the buildings are planning, and you can see what they align to. how they're broken down, who will be doing what are the teachers doing, what are TAs doing, what are the monitors doing. We have related service providers, what are they doing. Clerical had a rotation. So in here you have the one from the high school and you have the one from Millard Hawk Elementary. I didn't bring you one from everybody because it's all the same format, but just to see that when the building principals plan it, that's kind of what it looks like. Any questions on those? And the other item in there was a copy of one of the 4 Ps. That's when the principals do their learning walks. Just their individual ones in their buildings. This is the format for this that the secondary folks are using, and every teacher gets those as well. Any questions on any of those items? Okay.
No. Thank you very much. All right, with that, we move into our community open forum. The Board of Education encourages public participation on school-related matters at board meetings. Persons wishing to address the board shall advise the board president or the superintendent prior to the scheduled starting time of the meeting. Persons making presentations at a board meeting will address remarks to the president and may direct questions or comments to board members or other district officials only upon approval. Board members and the superintendent shall have the privilege of asking questions of any person who addresses the board. Questions and comments from the public concerning matters which are not on the agenda will be taken under consideration and referred to the superintendent for appropriate action. Persons wishing to have matters included on the agenda shall contact the superintendent in accordance with policy. We have one blue card tonight, Mr. Jeff Choquette, about smart school proposals. So, Mr. Choquette, based on the content, I would ask if you have comments in general, but we wouldn't entertain company-specific or it's not a presentation to the board. So our business administrator and our superintendent would handle those conversations.
Okay. So the purpose of me coming here today was to get in front of you. I was here about a month ago and was talking about looking at alternate proposals for the Smart School program. Oh, sorry. And I basically, just to cut to the chase, on page, if you look at the section I got highlighted there, there was just an example of savings that we could save the Central Square School District over $220,000 by looking at alternate proposals. Now, I know that overall there's over $4 million in Smart School funds that Central Square has been not approved for, but has received. And right now, 1.4 of it is what has been approved. As a member of the district, and also, as I mentioned last time I was here, I also work for Dell. I just want to make sure that somebody's at least taking a look at these numbers. This is a slightly different proposal. I wasn't able to meet with anybody, unfortunately, to go into more details about the proposal. I was able to gather a little more information off of once it was approved, off of that website, which was the proposal. The plan that you put together was a little bit different than what was originally submitted. And so I updated the proposal with the current numbers. I'm just hoping that at some point someone will take a look at it, and if at least there's some value in saving a couple $100,000 for the district and using it towards smart boards or other things, that's at least an option. Okay?
And if I can just address this one part, because I think it's important. So the Chromebooks, we're already going with a different company, but I want to explain. So when the person that was here before, Arena Gershman, Jack Monica, which you had mentioned publicly at Brewerton, when he looked into Dell, I don't know if you were with Dell at the time?
No one looked at Dell, I can tell you that. If they went to a reseller of Dell?
So what he was looking at was what Dell had offered regarding the makeup of it, how heavy it was and whatnot, and overall, the quotes that he got and what specifically that we were looking for. And again, he brought the information to me, and I valued his opinion regarding that the product at the time that he had looked at was not comparable to what the other districts were. Now, where I would love to be able to open that up to. You hit the nail right on the head. There are other things like the Teach Center, that's going to be up, that we're going to be getting quotes for those, and we would be more than happy to see what you would want to quote us once we put that out there and what that looks like moving forward. But again, that's the conversation that I kind of wanted. I didn't know that that's what was going to happen, because for me, it's like, this is where I kind of want to tease out. You're a community member, I get that, but you're also working for Dell.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so with that being said, there was a process that Jack, I felt did pretty good at looking at what our specific need was and talking to the elementary people, talking to sysops, and we didn't want something that was really heavy that the kid was going to be bringing from class to class to class, because our plan was to go down as early as first grade, but then the idea was possibly kindergarten as well, and bring to specials and things like that, which they are being used for. So that was the reason. I just wanted to put that right out there. It had nothing to do with your presentation back then, but I am absolutely on board in looking at how you could present and possibly bid for the rest of what we're going to be putting out there for Smart Schools.
Okay, and the only other thing I would say at the end is that sometimes resellers of companies like Dell, HP, Lenovo, doesn't really matter, will come and represent themselves as the Dell rep, and that's inaccurate, or the HP rep. Nobody came to me for special pricing, which is why I know it was never brought to Dell. In order for even a partner to get special pricing, they would have to go through me. So, I'm willing to work with anybody,
Sure.
But I just want to make sure at the end of the day that, we're doing the best thing for the district. And I from day one, I said I have a vested interest because I work for Dell, and I certainly understand that.
Sure, and I just want everyone to know that when you put out the number of the 220,000, when we're talking about apples to apples, and we're talking about what a white glove treatment means, what it means that when they come here and they spend the days and preparing for that, what the bundles look like of apps that go on that. And so I just don't want to mislead people to be able to then hear that and say, whoa, the district could have saved $220,000 when it wasn't truly apples to apples on the design that we ended up going with, whether it was touchscreen. There were a whole bunch of other variables. But I definitely, I'm happy to hear from you as a parent and kind of separate from the parent part, the Dell rep, when we do put those forward.
And to be honest, I don't like to be a pain in the butt to people. That's not my goal.
Sure.
My goal isn't to if somebody comes back and tells me I have other proposals that I think are more valuable, I certainly understand that.
Sure.
And I just want to make sure at the end of the day that you've had the opportunity to look at something from Dell as opposed to a Dell reseller, too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's a good point, and I thank you for that.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, move on to reports. I need a motion to accept the meeting minutes from December 4th and December 11th as proposed.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Loy is second. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? And it is unanimous. Tim, can you take one and pass it down that way? We're going to move on to unfinished business. You can take one and pass it down, sir. Which is the board goals. So, in compliance with open meeting laws, I had sent a link to the board just so they could view kind of an updated draft of these goals, which we discussed believe it was 2 meetings ago, public meetings ago. And so I incorporated everything I could from our previous discussions. And so you have that before you. It's double-sided. It's so the 4 goals of the district are what we used as our basis, and then we tried to put some measurements and some timelines around that. It is far from a perfect document and measurement, but to Mr. Patch's point, it's a very difficult thing, and we are looking to walk before we run. So open to feedback, because based on the feedback, then we're also looking to, if we need to make some adjustments, we can, but to adopt these tonight so that we can have our board goals identified and get them posted and start measuring ourselves against them for the remainder of the year. So I'll open that up to anyone on the board.
Is there anything on here that we haven't already talked about? Because this was, you said last time we talked about goals, pretty much everything on here was we talked about, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything new. I guess probably the ads based on conversation last time, so that it would look significantly different, would be, Mr. Colabufo mentioned last time, so under goal number 3, the last bullet point, so I put it as a measurement, is to institute STAR or a similar program that offers comprehensive assessment for all students with actionable information. So I didn't want to tie our administration's hands by identifying the tool, but something like it. Because you had mentioned whether we go with that or not, it's important that we have something. So that would be our goal, is to make sure we support Tom and get that adopted. And I put in, again, May is the time frame because we're going to begin doing our self-assessment in May. So if we don't have some movement on it by then we didn't meet it for the year. I don't think there's anything new outside of that.
So you're not looking for the board really to say, yes, let's use STAR as an assessment.
No.
You're looking for administration to give us an idea for a tool to use for assessment, and then we can say, yep, that's fine.
Yeah, what we would be saying by adopting these goals is that we are going to make sure and ask Tom for updates and make sure that by the end of the school year we've done something. We've instituted a tool that does that. If it's STAR, fine. If it's not, if they have something better, then that's great. Absolutely.
I would just say, if you are looking for my support and you were to use STAR by itself, that I would probably have a hard time with that, or any one tool. But because there isn't one tool for an assessment that can,
There's multiple indicators.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so I can update that if you want. Just simply say institute a program or programs similar to STAR, because that's the only one, or the one that I know is as comprehensive as what I'd be looking for. But I agree, I'm sure there's others out there. So program or programs. And assuming we vote and adopt these tonight, I will send it to the board just for a quick review before I send it to Pearl. But for now, understand that what we'd be voting on under that bullet would say to institute a program or programs similar to STAR that offer comprehensive assessment for all students with actionable information.
So with that change, I make a motion to accept these as is.
We have a motion to accept the presented Board of Education goals. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Yes, just give me 1 second. So we have a motion by Mr. McCarthy, a second by Mr. Bedworth. Now open for discussion? Yes.
It might be better to use the terms multiple measures, and then you're not tied to the program. That implies a software program or something, because your measurement might come in a variety of forms. So we use the term multiple measures. Sorry.
Which is consistent with how the teachers are evaluated. It's often that they're used multiple measures, so that's something that it aligns to what we do.
So I amend my emotion, not my emotion. I don't have emotions. I amend my motion to add in the, what was just discussed.
To incorporate wording around multiple measures.
Yep.
We'll beautify it as needed. But the intent is definitely there. Any other discussion on these? Only other discussion I'll say is that whether it's Mr. Colabufo or Connie or Aaron that just presented, the board's going to need, so one of our goals is to use 4 Ps in the mid-year feedback with our annual evaluation of Mr. Colabufo. We're going to need some training in that. I prefer that he not do the training that's going to rate him. So we'll be scheduling that with you for a
We're going to have that chain of command conversation.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Congratulations, and I mean it. It is no small feat that for the first time I'm aware of, the board has adopted their own self-evaluation goals, so good job, everyone. That's it for unfinished business. Now we open it up to the board for anything else they want to bring up.
Just got one quick thing. Last year we did like some sort of air quality study at one of the schools. I think it was ACOL.
It was ACOL.
What kind of effort does it take to do something like that? Because I'm kind of curious. There was a couple complaints from parents about the basements in the district. So is there what kind of effort was that when we did it last year? And
it was a pretty extensive effort. We had the safety officer position there from City BOCES had come in, had done tests. Then we had went and got a private third company part that had come out that actually showed that the way that she had run her tests weren't as exactly, I don't want to throw her under the bus, but a person that just specializes in this had showed that they were well below. There's a whole process. It takes the amount of spore count from outside, and again, it has to be apples to apples. You can't compare it to the outside in the winter. and then compare it to the outside when grass was being cut and everything was being moved around out in the summer. It's obviously going to put out a different count. So the way that they stated the inside and acceptable levels of, acceptance is based on what it is outside, and that's how they do that. And then they looked at other different things, and that had come back all really up to date. But it was a pretty extensive process over when we did it at AECOL.
Okay. So,
Not saying that we wouldn't if there was a situation.
That's what I was just going to try to remind you, that there is a process for that. So if there are people anywhere in the district that are having what they feel are air quality issues, there's actually a form that you fill out, and it starts at the school level. First, the custodial staff will look at it. The principals know about it. If they can't resolve it, then it goes up to Paul's office. The maintenance guys come in. They try to resolve it. If Paul can't resolve it, that's when he goes to an outside for help, depending on what the issue is.
Okay.
If they think it's water or, mold or whatever they think the issue is, if they can't resolve it internally, then they move to an outside agency for help. So if there is somebody that's out there that doesn't feel that they are getting what they need to go to their principal and get the form started.
yeah, just asking the question. Thank you.
So I have a couple things to bring up, always. One is, I believe we would need to refer it to the policy committee. So months ago, I mentioned to Mr. Colabufo that we had got a request for a field trip, and I remembered somewhere seeing something about a date by which we couldn't take a field trip after, but it's not in our policies, but I found it today. It's in the, actually in the teacher's contract. And so I guess my question that I'll refer to the policy committee is, should our policy incorporate that to ensure that we don't violate the contract?
I guess I would have to know what the...
So the contract states that we will...
That's a solid I don't know.
Yeah, the field trip will not be scheduled past the third week in May.
Which contract is that?
The teacher's contract.
Teachers.
So the CSDA contract.
Even if teachers...
No field trip will be scheduled after May 3rd?
Third week in May.
Third week in May?
Third week in May. That's
Right.
exactly why I'm bringing it up.
So that's the
Well,
issue. And then the other thing we have to...
just to clarify, not scheduled, like they have to be in, or you can't. They're not supposed to even go after May 13th. Everybody in the
The
world.
contract's saying they don't, so
But that it's the teachers that are in that unit that are putting in for the field trip. So that's where the conundrum comes.
Seems
Yeah,
like that's
and-
a waiver then.
Because the elementary schools go in June, like Oneida, I know, right?
exactly. And
So-
I'm not a fan at all. I prefer not to have it, because once you write policy, you're locked in. But we
So-
would need to get
But
some
one of
sort
the
waiver
things
or
is that's
exemption.
probably been in the contract for God knows how many years. Too, so
Thanks,
you're
Andy.
going to need to look at the contract
Fair point.
wording and whether that needs to be
So
resolved.
it's
I think you're just
it
saying...
doesn't, but if we get a request for a field trip past that date, if we don't have a waiver or something, what are we to do as a board? Right now, our hands would be tied because we're aware of it. So
We weren't
we
till
need
you
some
just said it.
direction. I know. Well, I was. I just couldn't remember
so
where.
what I recommend is that I meet with Lynn Dowler and we do an MOA that basically says where it's applicable. Now, I support Jeff 100%. If he doesn't want to have one June 2nd, 2 days before, a major exam, I don't think that's appropriate for the kids to be missing class.
That would be his call.
Exactly. And I would
would
give
be
him
his
the
call.
authority to say, don't
Which
approve
doesn't make
it.
sense.
Yep.
And the other thing, too, is a lot of the region states have changed. We didn't used to have an algebra regents on June 2nd. Everything used to be way before. So that's what I'm saying. The language in the contract doesn't really meet the real-world application at this point.
Yep.
So
All right.
Tom can address it then with the union.
Yep, exactly. So for Pearl, that'll be unfinished business. We won't bring it up every week, but Mr. Colabufo will update us when there's an update. Everyone good with that? That's very good. Anything else from the board?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Nickerson.
I think I just broke the mic. I did.
Oh, take
Yeah.
it out of her pay.
I broke the mic. All right. I don't want to step on toes or make it a long conversation. I just want to bring it up. A couple weeks ago, I attended a meeting with Aaron regarding UPK, and I know we've discussed it the last couple of years off and on, but it's never really gone with. I just want to put it on the floor here regarding busing for pre-K again. I know we talked about it, Tom, just numbers. If everybody else would be interested, try to get some of those numbers and see what that would look like.
Yeah, and I brought this up in cabinet, and we were kind of troubleshooting it, and that's what I do with cabinet. After something like this, we talk about what would be aided and what would not be aided. Right. So the midday run wouldn't be aided because that would be a separate run entirely of bringing kids in that aren't part of the other run in the morning and then the very end of the day.
Right.
So that's something we'd have to explore because this isn't, UPK isn't mandated, so we wouldn't be able to draw that other part.
Right.
But Aaron has the mic.
Yeah, so Johnny is looking at 3 different scenarios because we talked about the 3-year-olds would need to be in a car seat. Right. So those are $150 a piece. When you have a car seat on the bus, you need a monitor because they all have to be buckled in, and the seat behind them cannot be used or those kids have to be buckled in. So he's getting a price for how much that would cost because he has our current list of who our UPK kids are right now, so he's dealing with real kids. He's quoting us what they didn't do in Oswego is they pick students up in the morning and they transport them when they're 4. They transport them to school. The parents or guardians pick them up when that morning session is over. Afternoon session, parents bring them in, and then the buses bring them home in the afternoon. So it would just be one way of transportation. So he's getting us, a cost to that. And then he's looking at what the cost would be, even though it's not aided with the full program being.
That's great, and that's the big thing for me is I just wanted to make sure that we weren't just automatically shutting an idea down just because it's not aided. We had some pretty good conversation, I think, in that meeting, and just how important the UPK program is.
All districts are looking at that right now. They're kind of using ESM as the model because they have Park Hill, and that's all in there. But like West Tennessee, every year they don't have it right now. Most districts do not have it, but I would never shut something down because all the research shows that early intervention is the way to go. So if we can look at something like this and it's feasible and it's doable to get a kid into a school program earlier, that's great. I would never shut that down without looking at everything.
So Pearl, can you add to unfinished business? How do we want to word it? I guess the potential of transportation for pre-K?
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so we won't ask about it every week whenever you guys have something to present back to us, but it'll just stay on there for now.
Just so I'm clear, so we would have, what did you call it? Baby
Seats?
Car seats on the bus.
Possibly. If we transport, a lot of programs do not transport kids when they're 3 because of the added cost to it. So when they turn 4, then they can, if a school transports their students for UPK, once they turn 4, they can go on the school transportation.
What schools transport UPK right now, right in the area?
Oswego does, and I know Salve does.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My last question would be, they would be on with the regular run?
And again, they'll present on this, but with the stipulations such as if they're 3 and in a car seat, no one behind them unless they're seatbelts. So there's a lot to
And how many
consider.
roughly runs are we looking at, though? Because it's a minimal amount of kids compared to the district as a whole.
Yeah. I don't want to give you a number, and then he's going to come back with this information.
All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you. That being said, can I get a motion for F1? This is the second and final reading of district proposal or proposed policies. They'd be evaluation of. Did I skip that? I apologize. I withdraw the request for a motion. I skipped the most important part of the meeting, Mr. Colabufo's report.
Make a motion that we skip the superintendent's report.
I second that.
All those in favor?
You want to do 2 next week? We can do that. The motion was made fast, so. All right, what's next?
No, go through your
okay. So here we go. Superintendent report, December 18, 2017. The following Paul V. Moore High School students auditioned on Saturday, December 9, and have earned a seat in the OCMEA All-County Senior High Honors Band Festival that will take place on January 12th and 13th at Phoenix High School. Jillian Julian, Jessica Georges, Shelby Papas, Isabella Matthew Newton, Sarah Cyrell, Claire Ames, Mark Savage, Rachel Stringer, Lily Fitzgerald, Hannah Swolski, Justin Howe, Cole Wilson, Jared King, Rihanna Freeborn, Elena Mascaro, and Kara Sterling. The girls' basketball team visited Elderwood Nursing Home to brighten their day. The girls sang with the seniors. It was a very special day for them. They loved all the special gifts and that the girls had brought them and wrapped. Thank you to Coach Brazel and Coach Frisha for helping the girls give back to the community. So what I will do is I'll just pass this picture around and let the board take a look at it. That's actually a picture of the girls there doing that. The Brewerton Community Food Pantry wrote a special thank you to the Brewerton Elementary for their generous monetary donation of $50 and the massive food that was collected during the annual holiday food drive. They were able to provide complete holiday meals to 127 local families in need this Thanksgiving. Food fight. We have exceeded last year's totals of over 3,500 items. A.A. Cole Elementary came in first place with 9,520 cans and reaching, no, that's interesting.
Yes, that's correct.
It is. 1,923% of their goal. Wow. Brewerton, I don't have my glasses. Brewerton hit an all-time high of 6,995 cans and reached 1,427% of their goal. We are so proud of our district for all that they do each and every year to help our families in need. I've said from the beginning, coming on here 3 years ago, that this district does so much more for the community, not knocking the districts that I came from, but if anyone's ever in need, whether it's the staff members, anybody, they rally the troops to get them what they need. The last one, the Friends of Section 3 Wrestling Board of Directors elected Mr. Robert Coppola to the Section 3 Wrestling Hall of Fame for a lifetime of service in wrestling, Section 3. Congratulations, Mr. Coppola. And that concludes my superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Colbufo. So sorry to skip over you.
Sir.
Now I would like
I'll make a motion
a
to accept.
I would like to correct one name. It was Hannah Sywalski. Just,
Let's say Sawalski?
yeah,
Sywalski.
Sywalski, yes.
Sywalski. Sorry.
I just want to make sure.
That's good. Thank you.
Make a motion to accept F1.
accept F1, which is the final reading of these four policies: evaluation of the superintendent and other administrative staff, facilities inspection, operation and maintenance, hazardous waste and handling of toxic substances by employees, and field trips. Mr. McCarthy has the motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bedworth, any discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Make a motion to accept F2, and I'll read it. The approval of the resolution for the Pyramid Brokerage Company Incorporated contract extension.
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy, Mrs. Nickerson.
Let me just read, I guess I
Yep.
got it. Same terms and conditions as the original agreement. This authorization is hereby extended until midnight of September 1, 2018. All other terms shall remain the same.
So Mr. McCarthy with the motion, Mrs. Nickerson with the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Make a motion to accept G1, the acceptance of recommendations from the Committee on Special Ed and the Preschool Committee on Special Ed, and G2, the approval of the disposal surplus property.
Second.
Mr. McCarthy with the motion, Mr. Loy with the second for item G. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. I will make a motion for item H in its entirety. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy with the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It passed unanimously.
I'll make a
And with
motion
that,
to
I'll turn it
accept
over
that.
to Mr. Colabufo.
Jessica, can you stand up? Jessica, we take tenure very, very serious in the district, so much so that we made sure that you sat through three hours of this.
We're very sorry.
But the board is really, really, really focused now on anybody that comes through. There's no rubber stamp to somebody getting tenure. We went through, and I was happy to see your evaluations and what you've done so far. And just that is the expectation to still move forward. I've heard wonderful things. Tenure it's kind of like a marriage to the district. So there's those expectations still there, but I want to congratulate you, and it's a huge accomplishment. Great job.
Mrs. Nickerson is making a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:35. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bedworth, any discussion? All those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. See you all January 8th, I believe.